kind of class where actually maximum participation is I anticipate maximum participation, and uh, I hope you will respond. It is not that you must know the correct answer or the answer should be more appropriate, but meanwhile I'll ask some of the questions to understand actually what is the level of your understanding with regard to sociology of development, so that accordingly actually we'll move forward.
Yes, sir.
So first, can you anyone can answer what do you mean by development? No idea.
Development progress in social economical aspect of our life.
Acha. So you mean development and progress both are same?
Sir, by progress we achieve development.
By progress we achieve development. Okay. Uh, okay. Who else? Uh, okay. Correct. So by progress, Devi Prasad said, by progress we achieve development. But I'll just cite an example. If you would see a person who is progressing with regard to mm, achieving in terms of monetary gains, and he has a target of achieving 5 lakh rupees, or making transactions of 5 lakh rupees in a financial year, and he succeeded in achieving that, or she succeeded in achieving that, and the way actually he envisioned his progress or planned his progression with regard to his business or her business, can we call it as development?
Sir, we can call it as economic development. But when
Oh,
we consider about the overall development, other aspects also come into account. We
very,
can say economy is one of the aspect of the development.
very good. So basically, when it comes to development, it's a very what to say. Development is a very uh, a very composite concept, and it involves both qualitative as well as quantitative aspect of change. First, development is one of the aspects of change, and development is a very composite concept that it involves both quantitative as well as qualitative aspect of change, but that change should be common to the average members of a society. Why actually I have used the expression common to the average members of a society? Basically, it means, for example, you take the example of a village society. In a village community, in a revenue village, you take in terms of more scientific conception. In a revenue village, there are 200 households, and if you see with regard to development of infrastructure, how we consider a village infrastructurally developed, if average number of houses or households are connected with pakka road, then we can consider it as a kind of developed village. But if you consider a only among 100 households, only 2 to 3 households are well connected with the transport and communication, or the Pakka road is only expanded towards or till the 3 households out of 100, we cannot call that village as a infrastructurally developed village. The reason is the change did not affect the average members of a village. Average members means out of 100, if you take average members, it will come around 60, 70. Then we consider it as a kind of developed village. You take the example of attainment of literacy. To take the example of attainment of literacy, if a particular household, only one household or two household or maximum up to five household produced almost, uh, you know, 15 to 20 PhD holders, but the remaining households of a village, remaining 95 households of a village are illiterate. They have not gone to school. They do not know how to read. They do not know how to write. They do not even know to how to, they do not even know, how to make, how to sign a paper. Then that village is not educationally developed. The reason is development, what I said, it's a composite concept and it involves both qualitative as well as quantitative aspect of change, and it should be common to the average members of a society. Then, development and progress, growth, these are all, interrelated concepts, and most often actually we use them in a very blanket terms. Sometimes we tell, he is progressing well. Sometimes we tell it is, his growth is, unimaginable. He's grow, he's developing well. But then if you see the, characteristics and, with regard to the meaning attached to these concepts, uh, they are very, specific, and they carry specific meaning to, uh, and mean specific definition to, these, they carry specific definitions. Just a minute. Then, if we see, but then when it comes to development, we most often actually we cannot actually, sideline, or, we cannot actually leave social change without understanding social change. We cannot actually understand development, and development as, uh, Devi Prasad said, it's a very, it is not one dimensional. uh, it can be economic development, it can be social development, it can be cultural development, it can be human development. There are different dimensions, development. People usually, in a scholarly debates and discussions, usually people take different dimensions of development to assess a particular community's achievements, a particular community's progress, a particular section of the societies, especially we take a caste group, you take a, different class group, you take a urban society, you take a rural society. They take different dimensions to assess them and to evaluate them. And uh, but then, initially, if you see, historically, if you see, the concept development was only attached with economic dimensions. And uh, mm, if you see, uh, the notion of development, as I said, it is related with several other notions such as evolution, progress, change, growth, transformation, and there are, so, a number of, other notions which are very much synonymous with development. And if we see how to, differentiate it, when it comes to evolution, evolution is to develop or to unfold, and it is very much, if you see, it is very much related to the Sanskrit word called vikas. And the concept of evolution is specifically applied to the internal growth of a living organism. We usually, when we discuss about evolution, many of us are familiar with the notion of Darwinian notion of evolution, how human society evolved, how organism evolved. When it comes to plant, when it comes to animals, other species beings, usually we use this term or expression evolution as one of the major important concepts. Then the notion of progress is basically, it is very linear, and progress basically means to step forward. It is basically means, when it comes to progress, progress is used in a very positive manner. When it comes to, it's a very positive expression. Well, when we discuss about, when we tell that no, X is progressing so well, that country is progressing so well, which means it is a sign of very positive sign, which means it is unidirectional, and it is always goes forward. Uh, but then now we'll see actually how these concepts are understood, how different social thinkers have conceived these concepts differently. And we'll start with Comte, Auguste Comte, who is considered to be the father of sociology. He conceived this concept in a very different manner than other sociologists. And how actually Comte perceived, basically his analysis revolves around two major concepts. One is social statics, which refers to the study of major institutions or institutional complexes, and social dynamics, which deals with the study of development and change. And if you see, in his theory of positivism, Comte saw actually, human society and history as a single entity. And for Comte, development means the change which occurred in the European society, and he only considered the incidents of European society, or the progress made by European society, as the indicator of development. And if you see, as he said, that with society progressing or society developing, the different types of societies will die down. And he cited the example of different stages, like theological stage, metaphysical stage, and positivity stage. And he said that how theological society and metaphysical society gradually died down, and a new society called as a modern society evolved. And uh, basically, if you see, Comte defined sociology as the science of order and progress, and he divided it into, as I said, into two different concepts. One is social order or social statics. The other one is progress or social dynamics. And the sociology of development is more concerned with the progress or the social dynamics. But then the interesting thing is, Comte was very much concerned about, also concerned about about the social order. He said that, society, even though society progresses, but then social order is necessary. If you remember correctly, those who have studied sociology, why actually Comte is considered to be a very conservatist, and why actually he was opposed to other scholars like Rousseau, Aristotle, and others, those who considered revolution is the only way to social change. The reason was, Comte said, if society keeps revolting, then there won't be social order, and progress, actual progress or true progress, cannot be achieved through continuous revolutions. And social order is essential, and social stability is essential, and to make the society stable, we need a we need a new science which could actually bring about or study the emerging problems, social problems, or the emerging problems evolving in society, so that actually we can maintain the social order, at the same time we can achieve social progress. Then, if we see the next thinker who discussed elaboratively about the change and development, it was actually Marx. Marx, he was his approach was lot more contradictory to many of the sociologists. You take Durkheim, you take Comte, you take Weber. He was his approach was lot more different than other sociologists, because he considered that revolution or conflict is the medium through which social change will take place and society will transformed into a better society. That is what his perspective said. And he said that society will pass through different stages, and where actually he started with primitive communism, then he moved to feudalism, then capitalism, then socialism. Then he envisioned something which for which actually he considered to be one of the utopian thinker. The last one is the communist society. Basically, if you see, Marx believed that the capitalism is an essential stage and society must pass through it. And capitalism will be the highest phase of development. And the reason actually is the capitalism will teach the growing masses to produce more and to earn more, and it will teach the art of production basically. And if you remember correctly, those who have studied population and society, there was someone called the father of population studies, Thomas Malthus. uh, he provided a kind of model of population growth, which is known as two aspects of population growth: population and food production. One is the arithmetic growth, and the other one is geometric growth. And Malthus said that population growth will lead to poverty. And what is the reason actually population growth will lead to poverty? Malthus said that once there is population growth, since population grows in a geometrical manner means basically 2, 4, 8, 16. Okay, you will have to multiply with the same number, right? 2, 2 into 2, 4, 4 into 4, 16, 16 into, like that you'll have to multiply. And if you see arithmetic manner, food production grows in arithmetic manner, like 1, 2, 3, 4. But at the same time, when population progression, if you see it, it grows in a geometric manner. And uh, Malthus said that food production cannot go along with the population growth. The reason is population will grow geometrically, and food production will happen arithmetically, and there will be poverty, people will die, like that. But then Marx challenged that notion, and he said that with the growing population, production will experience quantum jump. The reason is, he said that capitalism will teach the masses how to produce more. And he said that capitalism is a good thing actually. Many people, they misconceive that Marx was against capitalism. Marx was never against capitalism. He said that capitalism is a good thing because it's a transitory phase. Society must pass through it, and society cannot reach socialism or communism without passing through capitalism. So it's a necessary step, and the sooner society passes through capitalism, it is better for the society. So basically, his notion was capitalism will teach the art of production, or the capitalist mode of production is the best mode of production through which society can achieve maximum development. And if you see, mode of production, basically he meant that mode of production basically Marx meant the way society is organized to produce goods and services. And he divided the concept of mode of production into two different uh, you know he used basically two expressions to define mode of production. One is means of production, and the other one is forces of production. Means of production basically he meant the capital, land, machinery, and other things. In the relations of production, basically means the labor relationship the producer sharing with the capitalist sharing with the laborers. And basically, if we see the Marxian notion of development, it was much different than Comte and than Durkheim and than others. The reason is, if you see Comte, he wanted social order and he did not want social disruption most of all. But then, whereas Durkheim considered society as a functional unity, he also considered society should be maintain the functional unity, and he used different expressions like solidarity, mechanical solidarity, and organic solidarity. But Marx was different because he used the notion of conflict, notion of revolution to bring a positive change into society. And for him, development can only be achieved through the class polarization and through class conflict. Then, if we see uh, Spencer, who was actually tremendously influenced by Darwin's work on the origin of the species of 1859, and he propagated that all through the ages there had been social evolution from a simple to a complex society, and where actually he cited the example of different types of society, such as simple society, then military society, much complex society, doubly complex society. And uh, he cited examples of especially how different doubly compound societies consist of clans unified into tribes, and how triply compound societies have tribes brought together forming a nation or different nation states. And the simple society, basically he meant that in the initial phase of evolution, then that society he considered as a kind of simple society. Then Spencer delineated the evolution of societies from military to industrial as a model of analysis, and compulsory cooperation, a centralized pattern of authority and social control, myths and beliefs reaffirming the hierarchical notion of society, rigorous discipline and close identity between public and private spheres. And these are he considered as the uh, important characteristics of society. And basically, if you see, mm, similarly, Ferdinand Tönnies, who is one of the important sociologists, he also evaluated society's development through different stages. Where actually he mentioned about the progress of society from Gemini shaft to Jessely shaft, and he said that how in a Gemini shaft society is a very traditional society, and Jessely shaft is a much modern society, especially in North America, Europe, and which society started focusing on self-interest. Those societies are called Jessely-Shaft society. Then we'll come to Durkheim. Durkheim is one of the pioneers of or founding fathers of modern sociology, modern founding fathers of sociology, and he used actually the development of society or the progress of society using different connotations such as social solidarity. And he said that solidarity basically means where actually the collective conscience is high. And he divided two different societies. One is the pre-industrial society carrying the characteristics of mechanical solidarity. Mechanical solidarity basically means the solidarity which is based on homogeneity, and the organic solidarity basically means the solidarity which is based on differentiation. And Basically, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So just folks, just I'll take 1 minute break. I'll come back. Hello, am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Uh, Devi Prasad, actually, there is some problem with it is fluctuating. I will take just 10 minutes break. You can have a cup of tea and after 10 minutes, we'll join again. Okay. I will be
Yes, sir.
online. I'll switch on. I'll shift my internet base actually. It is fluctuating.
Yes, sir.
You can have 10 minutes. Sharp, it is 7 7. Uh, I'll join at 7 17. Then we'll continuously have class till 8:30.
Yes, sir.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now it is stable, I believe. Yes. So we are discussing about how Durkheim's contribution to development studies, and if you see, he envisioned a society actually where actually he discussed about how society transformed from a more traditional one to a modern one, and to define that, he used two types of societies which are characterized by pre-industrial characteristics, and the other one is the industrial characteristics. And if you see, the pre carrying the mechanical solidarity was carrying the pre-industrial characteristics, and basically mechanical solidarity, as I said, the solidarity of homogeneity, and organic solidarity is the solidarity of differences. And if you see, he to define or to differentiate between these two societies, he used a methodology where actually he used different concepts to define, to measure whether a society is mechanical solidarity based society or a organic solidarity based society, and that is called volume, then material density, moral density. And material density basically he means uh, the number of individuals in a given ground surface. And organic solidarity basically he means the intensity of communication between these individuals. And basically what happens usually, if you see the Darwinian notion, what Darwin said that with the population growth there will be limited natural resources, and people will fight. People will fight for. People will quarrel. People will fight for to have the access of uh, mm, those resources, and there will be since the the amount of resources is scarce, people will fight among each other, and the fittest will survive. And his that is why actually his thesis is known as the survival of the fittest, and uh, the strongest will survive and the weakest one will perish. But then if you see the in his theory of division of labor, Durkheim challenged that Darwinian notion, saying that uh, the solidarity or the social solidarity, the solidarity will not decline with the progress of modernity. The reason is, even though there was a society where actually solidarity was based on homogeneity, now even with the differences, the society will move towards society will have the same kind of solidarity, but that solidarity will be based on different principles. And he said that with the progress of society, the different professions will emerge and the differential need will emerge. People will see need differential help of different professions, different professionals, and due to the increase of intensity of communication or due to the increase of moral density, people will come to know about each other's differential needs. You take the example of, for example, now the material density is in an organic solidarity based society, it is high. The reason is Bhubaneswar. You take the example of Mumbai, Bhubaneswar, Delhi, Bangalore, any city, you will find out the number of individuals living 20 years back, it increased tremendously. Number of household increased, which means the material density of that particular city increased or particular geography increased. The number of individuals in a given ground surface increased. So in case of moral density, see, now we have different means of communication. Now people are so packed, so connected. In the morning walk, people will discuss about their differential needs. In the WhatsApp, now you will see, if you open the, if you view the status of your friends, you will come to know about someone needs a plumber, someone needs a electrician. Usually people, they post a message saying that, do you have a carpenter's number? If you have, you please text me or reply me back. You have a kind of, most often we see actually, do you want to provide, do you have a kind of A positive blood group? Do you have a kind of, second hand motorcycle? Do you have any, do you know any carpenter, any electrician, any motor vehicle repairing mechanic? So basically, people, they now, it has become so convenient to know about the differential needs. So people will not fight for the same resources. People will not compete for only the agriculture, which was considered to be the only occupation or source of livelihood in the previous times. Now people will seek, they know this, since they know the differential needs of different people. Now they will choose different professions. Now a son of, if a farmer is having three sons or two daughters, three sons and two daughters, five of them will choose five different professions. None of them will, or not all of them will fight for the same profession which, their father was doing for, carrying forward for decades long. So basically, people will choose different professions based on the differential needs. Now engineering has a better demand, software engineering has a better demand. So now you can shift to, you are choosing software engineering as a career profession. Tomorrow you will come to know about uh, you know rise of medical profession, rise of private medical hospitals, better salary structure. People will go crazy for, medical education. Day after tomorrow, if people will come to know about the demand of interior design, they will shift for that. If you see, for artificial intelligence, specialization will increase, people will go for that course. So based on the societal needs, differential needs, people will choose different professions, and that will provide a kind of, that will enhance the interdependency of different individuals. You take the example, now I cannot actually leave, or I cannot, leave an electrician aside. The reason is, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, I need a person who will repair my electrical appliances. Day after tomorrow, you take a software engineer's responsibility. I might need, because of some, for, modifying my website, my personal blog, or you take the example of a service engineer who, does servicing for air conditioners or washing machines. Now you need, even you cannot leave a maid servant. So now, you are so connected with, people, those who have different professions. But then see how solidarity is maintained. You are so, everyone is dependent on each other. So that is what actually Durkheim said. With the rise of complexity, differentiation, that differentiation will bring solidarity. So then, uh, Weber also, discussed about development in his theory of Protestant ethics and spirit of capitalism, where actually he pointed out, spirit of capitalism basically means. Can anybody answer actually what do you mean by spirit of capitalism? Anyone?
Sir, like going for more profit oriented
Going for more profit oriented. Okay.
or
Anyone
shifting
else?
from the primary agricultural production to manufacturing production or industrial production.
Acha. So don't you think a farmer can be a capitalist?
The farmer can be a capitalist only when he can have a large area of land resource. Because when We have largely of land resource. We can introduce modern technological farming technologies, which would give him more profits.
Okay. Who else? Soumya Sucharita. Soumya Sucharita. Can you hear me?
I don't have any idea.
You don't have any idea. Acha.
No, sir.
Vishwajivan? No.
Generally, in capitalist term, we focus on more producing more.
Producing more.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Basically, spirit of capitalism, Weber said, it is the desire to accumulate more and more unlimited wealth. Okay. The desire to accumulate the spirit of capitalism. I am not discussing about what is capitalism. We are discussing about what is spirit of capitalism. Spirit of capitalism basically means the desire to accumulate more and more wealth. But then the question comes: can a thief spirit can be called as spirit of capitalism? No. A thief also desires to accumulate more and more wealth, but then Weber actually added a very condition to that, that the desire to accumulate unlimited wealth, but only through rational means. If rationally you are desiring to accumulate more and wealth, then it is spirit of capitalism. Then the notion of capitalism: you must accumulate profit, you must produce more, then you must reinvest those surplus profit generated from the production. Those are different aspects. But Weber criticized the Indian society, saying that he said that only Protestants, they had certain ethics which which were favorable for economic growth and development. But he criticized many world religions like Hinduism, Confucianism, Buddhism, Islam, all the other religions, saying that they are so orthodox and they are so tied with traditions. And he was critical of traditional values of Hindustan in terms of dharma, karma, moksha, and sansar. And he was critical of Hindustan's dharma, karma, moksha, and sansar conception. And he said that Indian society is economically backward because of its rigidity in terms of its dharma, karma, moksha, and sansar. But then later onwards, if you see, many scholars challenged Weber's notion. In case of, if you see, in Indian society, our certain caste groups, they progress so much despite of being Hindu. You take the example of Marwadis, you take the example of Nadars of South India, you take the examples of Chettiars, you take the examples of Marwadis. So, being a part of Hinduism, or they are following Hinduism, how actually they progress so much, how they actually challenged the Marx Weber's uh, m- uh, perspective, which was more inclined towards Protestantism, or notions of Protestant ethics. That was quite fascinating. And if you see, number of series of studies were uh, documented that particular aspect. And if we see, now we'll discuss about how development has multiple connotations. These are broad theoretical uh, um, perspectives. Apart from these, just for introductory, later on we'll discuss in more details about the contribution of these scholars. There are other, society, scholars like Talcott Parsons, and others, those who also brought in this concept of development in their theories. And if you see, development has multiple connotations. Like you take the example of one of the connotation is growth, change, or transformation, or modernization. And most often we use the concept, if you say development means, oh, whether he is modern or not, whether that is a modern society or not. It goes synonymous. And like if you see, change can be negative or can be positive. And growth always refers to an increased capacity to produce consumption goods and a concomitant increase in consumption pattern. And if we see, mm, the development as change and transformation refers to the economic, social, political, and cultural process of change in human societies. And the next concept we'll discuss about modernization. And modernization basically, whom do you consider as a modern? Whom do you consider as a person? Uh, if you take the example of a society, in which society you considered as a kind of modern society? Mira, Mira Sahu, which society you considered as a kind of modern society?
So I have no idea.
No idea.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what do you mean by modern? Forget about modern society. Anyway, so modernization is a process of change where actually society transforms from a traditional one to modern one in terms of from a rural to urban, non-democratic to democratic, non-secular to secular. Then, uh, where actually the maximum utilization of inanimate power is done. You take where actually we covered all the aspects, rural to urban transformation, then change of values in terms of democratic, non-democratic to democratic, non-secular to secular, then where actually maximum utilization of inanimate power, where actually inanimate power basically means machine technology, advanced equipments, so that we basically it refers to industries. Then that society is called as modern. And if we see, uh, the development has impact, differential impact on different societies and different uh, on different fronts. And you take the example of how actually it affects a developed to a urban society, how it affects to rural society, how it affects to its particular class, how it affects to a particular gender, how it affects to particular uh, caste in case of India. Basically, if you see, development is one of the development basically means, as I said, industrial growth, profits, resource utilization. Now these resources are diverted to feed the industry, and without considering the basic subsistence need of a society. And what it it leads to, uh, it leads to a kind of expansion of market, which will cost the livelihood of a particular society and a particular community. And uh, it generates utilities of consumption and luxury, but then we are much more obsessed with conspicuous consumption in the modern times. And growth development orientation, development is always led by, accompanied by increased level of inequalities and social disintegration. And there was evidence to show that how development itself either left behind or even created a new large area of poverty and stagnation. And economic growth has manifested itself in terms of an internationalization of economies of developing nations. And if you see, uh, the increased mechanization creates a kind of imbalanced scenario of or pattern of production and consumption. And increase income levels, multiplied exports, and raised increased economic growth of few regions created a kind of regional disparity in many. You take the example of India, the way Punjab is developed, the same way Odisha is not developed, because they experienced development much earlier. They experienced green revolution at the first phase, and we had to wait almost 3 to 4 decades to bring in green revolution. Then we have different models of development. Capitalist model, as I said, capitalist model, it's a kind of model which gives priority to profit in the first phase. They consider profit uh, generation is the sole objective of the mode of production. But at the same time, if we see the socialist model, it is considers the protectionism, or it believes in protectionism, providing social security, and it do not promote crony capitalism or one-side growth of uh, one-sided growth. And if we see, the third world is basically represented by the ex-colonial, newly independent and non-aligned countries of Asia, Africa, and Latin America, who are industrially backward. And the third world development perspectives are caught between the conflicting ideology of the first and second world. And basically, if you eventually we'll discuss about the theories. If you see the theories of A.G. Frank and others, Andrew Gunder Frank and others, those who have criticized colonialism, saying that those modern countries, especially the functionalists, those who criticize backward countries like India, Latin American countries, African countries, saying that your culture is bad, you are culturally backward, your cultural backwardness is responsible for the underdevelopment. They most often overlook the aspect of uh, colonial exploitation, uh, you know, which is the sole reason for economic exploitation of these countries, which pushed these countries almost centuries back, and these countries are now in back foot because of that colonial exploitation. Then, if we see the developmental, the human dimensions of development, there are certain, components which the human, United Nations development programs identified. One is to lead a long and healthy life is the first criteria. Then the second one is to acquire knowledge, and the third is to have access to resources needed for a decent standard of living. These three essential choices defines human development according to United Nations Development Program. But then, how many countries have access to that? Then, if you see the concern, about the development as freedom, Amartya Sen is one of the leading economists who actually proposed this proposition called the development as freedom. For him, development means the uh, when you have absolute freedom to decide, your life, decide about what to do, what not to do, then you will be considered as a you can say that you are living in a developed society. You take the example, he cited the political freedom, economic facilities, social opportunities, transparency guarantees, and protective security. And he said that once you are free to decide, take decisions, then you can say that you are living in a developed society, and that is the true essence of development. And if you see the World Development Summit of 1995, it broadly talks about people's initiatives, people empowerment, strengthening capacities of the people. And regarding the objectives of development, it specifically mentions about the empowering people, particularly women and the marginalized sections, and they considered women at the margins. And not only women, in case of India also, if you see, there are a number of caste groups, those who remained uh, backward um, in terms of development. And basically, uh, just a minute. Okay. So now we'll discuss about the uh, what do we mean by change, and the perspectives of modernization and development. Basically, modernization is social change. We basically, what do we mean by social change? Social change, according to McIver and Page, is change in social relationship. It's a process responsive to many types of changes, to changes in man-made conditions of living, to changes in attitudes, okay, and beliefs of man, and to change that go beyond human control to the biological and physical nature of things. And there are a number of sociologists, those who actually provided cover different dimensions of social change. You take the example of Kingsley Davis, who meant by social change basically means such alterations that affect the organization, structure, and function of a society. Then, what are the causes of social change? Basically, there are different causes. One is the cultural change. A large part of change in society is caused by change in culture. And basically, culture is a system that constantly loses and gains its components. Invention, discovery, and diffusion are considered to be the main sources of cultural change. And if you see the ideas of change, new ideas and modification of old ideas in a new context brings wide scale changes in a society. You take the example of Weber, actually, who talked about formal rationalization, and who talked about how actually uh, formal rationalization is overimposed in a modern society. Then it leads to disappearance of traditional components of a society. Then demographic change is caused by increase in the birth and decline in the death rate and migration of the people population. And change occurs from the demographic transition in a society. Then conflict and change, the example of war related conflict is very much in the limelight nowadays. You take the war between Ukraine and Russia, how that particular country experienced change. You take the example of Israel and Gaza, how actually Palestine, how those countries experience change. Whether it is positive, negative, those are different things. But then the kind of change they experience, they experienced change in terms of structural strength, deprivation, cultural, disappearance. Then uh, the social movements can lead to social change. You take the example, social movements are organized efforts of groups of people to bring about deliberate change in the values, norms, and institutions. And if you see what are the perspectives of social change, first is the evolutionary perspective. Evolutionary perspectives believes that society changes through different evolutionary stages. You take the example of Comte, who states society changed from theological to metaphysical to positivistic one. And we had Karl Marx, who actually considered society changed because of the continuous conflict emerging from between different classes, and he identified that class consciousness is the sole reason for this class conflict. So in case of Ralph Dahrendorf, who identified the unequal distribution of authority, and how class conflict is taking place in an industrial society. Uh, just a minute. So basically, the class conflict is one of the important, the class, if you see the Marxian analysis, class is the central concept around which the entire Marxian analysis revolved around. And the class conflict is based on the principle of unequal distribution of material resources. And if you see, subsequently, when actually Dahrendorf expanded Marx's ideas of class conflict, he actually brought in the concepts like how industrial societies, the class and class conflict in industrial society, there actually he brought the concept of authority and unequal distribution of authority, how it leads to class conflict. That was his prime focus. Then we had called the structural functional perspective, and the structural functional theorists basically the consists of interrelated. What do we mean by basically of functionalism or structural functionalism? There are usually the question comes how to differentiate between uh, mm, functionalism and structural functionalism. And basically, if we see, uh, one can differentiate between structural functionalism if you are familiar with the work of Malinowski and Redcliffe Brown so easily. The first thing is functionalist perspective believes that society is composed of different interrelated parts, and each part performs its own duty for the functioning of the whole unit. And if there is any disruption in any part, the entire system comes together to work together to compensate that crisis and to adjust that crisis so that the system can function smoothly and that particular part can come back to normalcy. You take the example of a society where actually different institutions are considered to be different parts. We have legal institution, we have political institutions. You take the example where actually somewhere actually rural conflict happens or riot breaks out, and immediately they call it to the legal institutions, or this for institutions, governance institutions, legal governance institutions, police persons were called, army was called, but then somewhere it was realized that people are getting killed because of police firing. People, army failed, police failed to resolve that issue. Now the society tries to involve another institution called political institutions. They called for peace talks, they call for discussions, they call for understanding, and they it leads to a kind of peaceful resolution of that conflict. And at the end, what happens when actually a particular judicial or legal institution fails, another institution called political institution, it succeeded in resolving that. So in case of functionalism, where actually when the functionalists, they say that society is composed, functioning as a unit, and that unit is composed of different parts, and each part performs its unique duty for the smooth functioning of the whole unit. And what happens once that one particular part experiences crisis, it affects other parts, but then other parts at the same time they come forward to arrest the crisis. And structural functionalism, they believe that, what is the difference between functionalism and structural functionalism? Structural functionalism, they believe that this condition or this functionality of a particular part is conditioned by or is created through the structural conditions. Which part will perform which duty? It is decided by the structural conditions. Uh, Then, if we see, we have call the perspective called modernization. And modernization, basically it's a process, as I said, process of modernization. Basically it is, we can say that modernization is a total transformation of a traditional or pre-modern society into the type of technology and associated social organization that characterizes the advanced, economically prosperous, and relatively stable nations of the Western world. And if we see, it is the process of social change in which development if you see different definitions, Daniel Norner said that the process of social change in which development is the major component, economic component of this model. And Daniel Lerner examined the process of modernization in several Middle East countries, carried out a sample survey in other underdeveloped societies, and supplemented all this with his observations of village society. And what are the features of modernization? Features of modernization, if you see, it emphasizes a high degree of structural differentiation and specialization. It is based on a mode of production that has come to be known as the capitalist mode of production, and it is essentially a wage labor economy, and it highlights the growth of bureaucratic institutions. It emphasizes the growth of political system. The powers of the state are absolute, and there is a democratic process. Then finally, the modernization process also emphasizes the idea of social progress and through the process of democratization. Then if we see, in the modernization perspective, uh, we have different components which we'll be discussing about in the next class, because there will be repetition. Yes, modernization is there in block 2. Okay. So, yes. So there are different, scholars, those who contributed immensely to this school of thought, and one among them is W. Rostow, and he was an economist. And Rostow said there are different stages through which actually one country experience, development, and he cited, he provided 5 stages of economic growth. And what are those stages? Basically, he provided a kind of, traditional stage where actually the society is very much stable, very stagnant. It was not moving. Then finally, in the second phase, he brought the concepts called, the precondition to take off. He provided the model, how, taking the model of, the taking of a flight in a airfield, how actually, a flight takes off. Basically, when his flight is stable, he said that it's a traditional society which is very stagnant, nothing was moving. Then he brought the concept called precondition to take off, basically where actually the flight prepares itself to, fly. Then the takeoff stage, then takeoff stage where actually flight takes off. That means when the economy takes off. Then he cited the example of, in more details actually we'll be discussing about, but then since it's an introductory class, we'll be briefly discussing about. Then we have called the takeoff stage, then the age of uh, mass consumption, where actually an economy, uh, the maturity stage, where actually he discussed about uh, the economy gets stable and people consume, the consumerism, so grows at a rapid pace and the economy becomes stable. And that is what actually, his perspective was. And Rasto has been criticized by many of the scholars on the basis of the teleological approach. And teleological approach basically is one where actually the purpose which is not explicitly intended by anyone and is fulfilled, while the process of fulfillment is presented as an inevitable sequence of events. And in Rostow's model, policies are the result of development and not otherwise. And this was unacceptable to many, as policies of a state should be chosen and not just merely adopted. And it is felt by many scholars that the characteristics of stages identified by Rostam might overlap or spill into other stages. For example, the precondition stage things may contain in the takeoff stage and could also get carried further beyond this stage. And critics feel that Rostov plays down all the obstacles and never discusses them. And he feels that, you know, the flight, taking off a flight is a very easy and hassle-free, exercise, which is not in fact true. For example, you take the example of, in the running track, while taking off the flight, there might be bumps, there might be humps, there might be crash landing, there might be, flight crashes, which means economy might experience crash, crisis. In those aspects actually Rostov did not discuss about. And the most uh, you know, well-known reaction to the theory of modernization was the theory of dependency, which is considered to be the antithesis to modernization theory, which was critical of the modernization perspective, saying that you cannot actually criticize the underdeveloped countries or developing countries, saying that they are backward because they are rigidly tied with their traditional culture. The reason is they also provided historical evidences saying that this particular society is backward because the kind of experience they had, none of these advanced countries ever experienced. You take the example of England, European countries, United States, they were never colonized, and colonialism was the major reason for their backwardness. So basically, if we see, it was the sole reason actually for which the dependency, protagonist of dependency perspective, they criticized modernization school, and there are tremendous barriers to development. We'll briefly discuss about them. One is mm, the energy condition. Energy is an essential condition for development, and uh, you know many of the countries, they are deprived of energy resources. And if you see, the onset and speed of physical and biological reactions depends on seed crystals, catalyst, essence and nutrients, and frequency and intensity of interaction between elements and conducive environmental conditions. And social development depends on the seeding of new ideas in society, awareness of new opportunities, social aspirations, and attitudes to change. Development is an expression of social creativity, and it requires immense investment of creative energy for society to experiment with new modes of activity. An indomitable energy has been an outstanding trait of great political leaders such as Napoleon, Churchill, Gandhi, and business leaders such as Andrew Carnegie, Henry Ford, Tom Watson, and the inventor Thomas Alva Edison was known to work for days on end without sleep in the process of developing the patentable invention and founding of General Electric Company. And if we see, the surplus energy is most dramatically illustrated by two conditions under which it is unable to accumulate or express itself: war and dictatorship. War destroys infrastructure and interferes with production and trade, and it physically saps the energy and resources of a country. Then we have awareness. Surplus social energy collects as potential beneath the surface and accumulating until it acquires sufficient force to burst out in new activities. But the mobilization of this energy for action depends on the kind of awareness we create, and awareness of new development opportunities and challenges. And society that are fully consumed by the struggles for survival have little time or inclination to direct their attention outward to observe what other societies are accomplishing or forward to envision new possibilities. And the increased pace of development is directly linked to an increase in the speed and reliability of information about what is taking place in other parts of the country, region, or other parts of the world due to improvements in communication and transportation. And if you see, the next point is most important point, it is called as aspiration. The aspirations are basically formed from the thick of social life, and individuals, they can envision development only if they can aspire for development. Everybody cannot aspire to become a doctor, everybody cannot aspire to become an engineer. If you go through the a piece written by Arjun Appadurai, a cultural anthropologist from United States of America, who contributed a piece in the volume called Culture and Public Action, where actually Amartya Sen and other big sorts have contributed, big scholars have contributed their articles. Arjun Appadurai said the capacity of aspiration describes to which level of development we have reached, and the aspirations are not formed in the classrooms. Aspirations are formed from the thick of social life. One's social background, social setting, social living condition defines how he aspires. It if it that particular individual's aspiration goes beyond that, then it becomes he becomes. So that particular individual becomes exceptional. So you take the example of a rickshaw puller's son becoming IS officer, and why actually there are a number of candidates they clear UPSC, but then why actually media highlights them? The reason is nobody imagined that belonging to such a kind of struggling background, he can aspire to become an IS officer. So that is why actually in a sense Arjun Appadurai said that in his capacity to aspire, how the aspirations are formed from the thick of social life. And usually, if you take the example of Islam, is from Islam, a person cannot aspire to, there are persons, those who have become doctors, but then their number is very few. And, there are individuals, those who actually, become IS officer, there is no, denying of that fact, but then their number is rare and they are very exceptional, which is not common. And if you see, an individual becomes IS officer, an individual becomes engineer from Islam, and he has crossed that boundary. And if you see the majority of the adults belonging to that particular locality, they do not aspire to become an IS officer, but do not aspire to become an engineer, which is very uncommon actually. And the reason is, it is their aspirations are determined by their you know social conditioning, or the social condition they are living in. Then uh, we'll be discussing about social, human, and gender development. You see, development as a realization of human potential. It is one of the important component of development. One must understand. The reason is, human potential is not, still it is not completely explored, and the developed countries actually they have they emerge successful in realizing the human potential. And unless we don't realize that the human potential, or to what extent actually human can his capacity, his ability, his potential can reach, we cannot actually achieve true development. And if we see, uh, there are several conditions that makes for achievement, for this aim, development as an expression of human personality. Basically, the capacity to obtain physical necessities, particularly food, a job which is not necessarily paid employment, but including studying, working on a family farm, or keeping house. Then equality, which should be considered an objective of its own right, participation in government and governance, then belonging to a nation that is truly independent both economically and politically, then adequate educational levels. Similarly, there are scholars like David Cotton who actually listed out like justice, then sustainability, inclusiveness. These are components of development. Then there are scholars like Manfred Max Neef, who actually brought he called this as human scale of development, and he listed out the silent features such as the model of development as planning with autonomy, growing levels of self-reliance, coherent and balanced interdependence of people, nature and technology, balance between the personal and social, constructive interplay of civil society with the state, and the emergence of global processes along with the local activities. Then development should involve the participation of the masses. And in the capitalist development, usually it leads to crony capitalism where actually the masses are excluded from the developmental process. And always the powerful economic interest groups, they set their agendas for the development. And development must nurture diversity. It should not actually only promote one particular group. It should promote it should promote political and economic decentralization. It should strengthen democracy. It should allow the indigenous traditions and institutions to flourish, and it should encourage rather than repressing the emerging social movements or reactions. uh, Then the impact of development on women. If you see, development is responsible for the intensification of gender inequality. Earlier, actually, the gender inequality was not intensified. Since the countries have experienced development gradually, they have also intensified the gender, to abolishing or to remove, gender inequality from their from the development. And the lack of security, opportunity and empowerment imply the lowering of quality of life in both men and women. And if we see, when women and girls, they bear direct costs of gender inequality, it needs to be recognized that the ultimate cost of lack of development and poverty have to be borne by the people across the society. The entire society will pay the price. And women's development is therefore simultaneously a gender and a developmental issue. That is actually, gender has emerged as a kind of important component of development. If you see the World Development Report, last to last World Development Report, I think 2018 or uh, 17, if I'm not wrong, the World Development Report's title was Gender and Development. Very interesting. Then the how actually this development always actually protects the interest of women, which was eroded, women's right in the traditional economy. Then how actually feminization of household is taking place, the land tenure system, how actually through Hindu succession of act, if you see in India, women's have gained access to the parental land. And now if you see the access of education, now women, the participation of women or the progress of women in terms of educational access is increasing. uh, then if you see, mm, just the gender roles and the impact on women's development. uh, Women, most often perceived as dependents or as homemakers, and they are always engaged in three basic responsibilities. uh, like they are responsible for the reproductive work that involves both childbearing and rearing. Then secondly, the low income households in the third world have their women engaged in productive work, that through which they earn wages. And the third is their reproductive responsibility. Women also take up community managing work that facilitates collective consumption needs of the neighborhood of the community. And despite these three roles women play, Still, despite of performing these three important roles, they were made invisible in the developmental discourse in the earlier years. And uh, now we need a kind of, we should have a practical and strategic gender needs. That is why actually gender budgeting is included in the developmental policies. So now the concept of sustainable development is emerging, and sustainable development basically, if you see, it has come into force from the perspective of this United Nations. And the sustainable development basically means continuing with the development without affecting the need of the future generation. And if we see the major proponents called the Stockholm Conference on human environment was the major breakthrough. And the report titled Limits to Growth, which was tabled on 1972 in 1972, has been credited as the first official study on global environmental deterioration. And if you see, for the first time, the world realized that industrial development is not the only answer through which world can progress. Rather, we should protect this world. Progress is not the only answer, but we should also protect the world. And in our common future, 1987, the sustainable development was clearly defined for the first time, and it said that sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. And it contends with two key concepts: the concept called needs, in particular the essential needs of the world's poor, to which overriding priority should be given. Then the idea of limitations imposed by the state of technology and social organization on the environment's ability to meet present and future needs. Then sustainable development, if you see, it was started with the Stockholm Conference, but then now we have revised time and again. Now the United Nations Conference on Environment and Development, the Earth Summit, came up with multiple suggestions uh, to achieve sustainable development. And if you see in the context of India, now the objectives of Viksit Bharat is very much aligned with the goals of sustainable development, on which actually our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the present government is emphasizing, stressing on to achieve these uh, sustainable development goals. So now, if you see the in the research agenda, if you see Indian Council of Social Science Research and other research bodies, they are providing special project grants on the theme of Viksit Bharat, where actually earlier the issues concerning to environment, sustainable development were not addressed or not given adequate attention to delve into or to research into. So these are the major backgrounds which we'll be discussing in the coming days. And I hope today's lecture was clear for everyone. So after listening from you, I'll conclude the class. Anyone can actually
Yes,
respond. Devi Prasad.
yes, sir.
So, next class onwards, we'll do one thing. Actually, we'll continue for 1 hour. Then we'll have 10 to 15 minutes break, because it is difficult, since I have realized it's a one-way transaction. Actually, rarely any of you respond, and it becomes difficult for me to talk for over 2 hours. It is almost actually difficult. So we'll take 10 to 15 minutes break meanwhile, then we'll continue again next class onwards. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we'll conclude here. Thank you so much for patience sharing.
Thank you, sir.